What's up, man?
What's up? It's been a long time since we've hung out like
It
this.
has.
Like at least a couple months now.
It's been since last year. Can you believe that? Since you left for Peru. How was your trip, by the way?
Oh, it was great.
Yeah, man.
Saw a lot of.
Good to get out of the country.
Yeah, it was nice. But I mean, they're dealing with all the same shit we are here. It's just through a different system. So it was really interesting to see the contrast between how different cultures respond to, everything that happened last year.
And what city did you go to again?
We were in Lima. That's the capital.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and it was cool. I mean, entirely different way of thinking, and it's really interesting to see an entire system built around that. It's interesting to see all the flaws that they have and the flaws that we have, and how a lot of them are related and some of them aren't related or connected. It's just...
Was this your first time going out of the country?
No, actually. When I was much younger, I lived in Europe for a little while.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
my dad had a job over there, but...
That's right. I remember that now.
At the time, I wasn't, thinking about this sort of stuff, so it was just annoying to me to not be, at the same school for more than a couple years and moving all around the place, making new friends and everything. So...
Yeah, I feel like for me, the first time I left the country, and I was a little bit older, but it really just kind of changed my perspective on the world. I mean, it made me think about all of the other places that I hadn't been. Like, if a place like Europe could be so different from the United States, then, what about a place like Peru or, Brazil, Africa, these places are, there's so many different places that I still haven't been to yet.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of the feeling I got the first time I left the country.
And you can definitely, tell once you see something in real life is a whole lot different than watching a documentary or reading about something in a book. Actually seeing a culture in person, seeing these people face to face, you realize that their entire universe is different from ours. Everything. They have a different shaped country. They've got different roads, different languages, different styles, different tastes, different ways of thinking even.
Yeah.
And that's all just based on environment and history.
Yeah, man. Well, what else is new? So it's been 3 months since our last podcast, since the last year. Yeah, what are you doing, man? Musically,
well,
professionally, socially, where, what's going on right now, man?
I've got a couple interesting leads set up. I want to start teaching students as soon as I can, obviously.
Yeah.
And so I got in contact with my high school band director, Robert Sterrett, and he let me come to the jazz band rehearsal and just do a little clinic for the kids and everything. They sounded insane, by the way. I got there and he had the first band play for an hour, and I was like, wow, they sound really good. And he's like, all right, now the A band comes in. and
they were next level.
They were next level. They could go to these college band competitions and just blow people away.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's incredible what he's been able to keep up through all this. The quality of the music being played there has not dropped at all.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I imagine that would be hard to do.
Right.
To kind of keep it going. I mean, in my experience, the students I'm working with right now, their band programs are all kind of just in disarray. They either don't meet at all for rehearsal. They just do a virtual kind of meeting thing, or they meet but in real small groups. It just seems like in any capacity, things are just really different. So I guess my question: did things change a lot there with the program?
I mean, as far as I could tell, the jazz rehearsal felt very similar to, my experience. The only difference is they're wearing masks and sitting 6 feet apart, obviously.
Okay.
Although one thing I will say was interesting, they had these bell covers that they had to use.
Oh yeah, I've seen those.
And I asked.
Those are interesting.
I asked Mr. Sterrett what the reason for that was, and he said it's to mitigate the spread, obviously. But the only thing that I don't understand about that is on a saxophone, almost all the air comes out of the keys, not the bell. The bell's just shaped that way for
Exactly.
the sound to reverberate right to get out. So,
Yeah, at that point, it's like kind of just for show.
yeah, like
It's like,
I don't know. I have a feeling
okay,
that rule was thought up by somebody who has never played an instrument.
yeah, maybe. It's like those like advertisements you see in the like woodwind brasswind magazine. I don't know. I mean, maybe not those, but
Like the crystal gem mouthpiece.
well, you see the kids in the pictures and they're like, holding the saxophone, but they got the mouthpiece upside down and they're like
Oh,
right
yeah,
hands on
yeah.
top, like just like things are not right. Yeah,
Wow.
that's like I remember seeing that stuff all the time.
Yeah,
Different instruments.
I'm remembering that now too. But like, these companies are producing these products, these supposedly very intricate musical instruments. How do they not at least understand
Yeah.
where the hands go? Unless it's like a lesson studio of some, like, I don't
Well,
want
honestly, I think it's just actors. They're paid actors who
but like,
aren't musicians.
Who's the ad for? Like, who's selling the ad? Is it for a music product? Or?
Yeah, yeah, like I don't know, Yamaha. Maybe not Yamaha, but
Dude, I can see Yamaha doing that.
I don't. Maybe it's like more like local companies. Like I don't know if I want to drop any names, but like the one that starts with an M. And I don't know, like online sometimes. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think
Right,
I do.
okay. Yeah, I don't know. We'd always get these folders and they'd have pictures on it. Anyway, I'm getting very, very off topic here.
Yeah, I remember those pictures. I spent a lot of time looking at those pictures and drawing on them.
Yeah, yeah. We have gone too far down memory lane.
All right, we can come back
but
now.
but yeah, man. Basically, glad to hear you've been well. Glad to hear you've been productive
Thanks.
and working on music and had a good trip. Basically, man, I really haven't been up to too much other than teaching a little bit myself. Actually, mostly teaching guitar right now. So that's kind of a trip.
How did you end up getting guitar students as a saxophone teacher?
Mostly just has to do with demand. Where I'm teaching, demographically speaking, it's just not really a high demand for saxophone teachers. And I have a couple, they're out there, but just for the amount that I'm working, the amount of hours that I have through this company that I teach through, most of the students are just guitar players because that's just what most people are looking to learn.
Yeah, I can see that.
And it's cool with me, it's not so much. I try not to look at it as a sacrifice, in any respects, but like, I definitely would be rather teaching saxophone.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what you came up learning.
Yeah,
It's what you know the most about and probably what you have the most to offer on.
I agree. The one thing I always tell my students is that guitar was actually the first instrument that I played. I started out on. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I kind of technically been playing guitar longer than saxophone, but at a certain point in my life, I just kind of stopped looking at guitar and mostly just kind of worked on saxophone. So
I know there's also a lot of other people that started on probably mostly woodwinds that would switch over to saxophone. Especially a lot of clarinet players.
Well, yeah, that was kind of that's like a more accurate story for like how I ended up on saxophone. I started out on clarinet and then moved to saxophone. But guitar was the first one, so that's kind of like home base for me.
It's interesting. Michael Brecker started on clarinet too.
Yeah. That is interesting. I guess I don't know. I feel like that is true for a lot of people, like you're saying. Like you start out on one thing and you make a transition to something else. What would be like the weirdest switch though? Like piccolo to timpani or something.
Oh man, there was one really weird switch that I remember someone made, but I forget what it was.
Vibraphone to ukulele.
Oh, it was French horn to electric bass.
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
And Andrew, our friend at ECU, he was like
nice.
typical classical guy, at least I thought in the first 2 or 3 years, but then he switched over to the jazz program on electric bass just out of nowhere. I don't know if he was like full jazz student, but he was like playing in the bands and everything, and he sounded really good. But yeah, it's just crazy where that kind of thing can come from.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I can think of a weirder transition.
French horn, no electric bass. Yeah, I mean that's pretty drastic.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've ever had to make a switch that big.
But aside from that, we could probably get weirder.
Yeah. Synthesizer to sitar. That'd be kind of weird.
Yeah, that would be weird. That would avoid like the whole Western music thing.
Yeah, you'd have to restructure your whole life.
Yeah,
like you'd have to become a whole different person.
That would certainly be a challenge.
When you teach through a company, you basically just don't have as much freedom. Like you may have freedom as to like what you teach, but in terms of the business side of things, you don't really have much freedom. They kind of set the prices. They do the schedule for you, so it's like it's just kind of like a middleman, you know. And sometimes I just think like, well, maybe there are some pros and cons to doing it like just by yourself, you know.
Right.
And I know that's something that you're kind of looking into.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking to more do it out of your house, you know, teaching.
Yeah.
From home, basically.
Well, the reason I'm driven away from like traditional style studios is just because like the first couple applications I did to them, like they claimed like a 60-40 cut. So I would get like 40% and they would get 60, and it was just way too high. Like I would have been getting maybe like $15-$20 per lesson.
Wow.
In your experience, what's the average cut that they usually take?
Well, it depends. I mean, I've done some research. I've only taught at one place so far, so I can only say from personal experience that the place I teach at's 50-50. But I mean, that's not the only variable, you know. It depends on the initial rate they're setting.
Right. Do you have any say in that rate at all?
No, I don't personally. They just kind of take care of that. But for example, somewhere where it's a 60-40, if they're charging, I don't know, $250 a month, or yeah, I mean, I know like some companies they charge $60 an hour, and that's like goes to the teacher, but then the teacher has to pay rent for a room.
Right, that's actually how
the
studio that we came up in operates.
Okay, gotcha.
Teachers split rent for the room, and
the
studio doesn't take any cut from the actual lessons. They just facilitate the usage of the space. And I really like that model because it cuts out like a middleman sort of thing.
Right, yeah, it's like you get to take all the money ahead of time, and then you give a little bit back to help support the business. You know, it's like you're just paying for what you have to pay for.
Right, but what the money is going for is like, it's the money that you're paying is directly for the rent of the space. It's not going to the studio. So
now this brings up a really like kind of big thing that I've been thinking about. How do online lessons affect this? Because like, if you're teaching online and you're teaching through a company and they're still taking that 60 or 50%, how can they justify that? Because you're doing it online from your house.
I guess they would say that their platform is facilitating those students. Like,
right.
They would argue that they're giving you the students and you're making money from it, and thereby you're their employee in a part of this process.
Yeah, I think it just kind of illustrates though that's one of the pros of being independent, being freelance. You all the money's going right to you because you can just do it online. You can do it from your house.
Right.
you don't have a finder's fee.
The only challenge with that is finding the students.
Yeah.
That can be really, really hard because
Right.
these companies, oftentimes they're well known. They put out flyers like everywhere, and I know I could do the same thing, but like people are going to be much more likely to pick the established studio down the street if they don't really know much or aren't connected too much throughout the schools or
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
There's just something about having that business front that makes it seem more official.
Yeah.
You know,
But
even though it's a private lesson is always going to be more or less the same thing.
I'm kind of allergic to that whole style, though.
Oh, what do you mean?
Like-
What style?
Like the way that the lesson studios just look so corporate, and it's like, okay, here's
Yeah.
this big contract for your, 6-month session,
Mm-hmm.
and there's like tons and tons of paperwork and forms with all these different employees, when at the end of the day, the big picture in a lot of cases isn't the studio anymore. It's something else.
Yeah. No, I feel you.
And not every place is like that. I mean,
Yeah,
we're
I mean,
both proof of that.
yeah, you see it sometimes. I mean, I haven't run into that too much, I don't think. But yeah, that would definitely be a shame to see, like,
Yeah,
I think anyone who's teaching music, like, or any teacher at all, really, it's like hard to be that shady.
yeah, that's true.
Unless the company's run by non-teachers.
Right, but for a lot of these, this is easier for the online platforms too, because they can pull in as many employees as they need to, pay them very, very low because they know they're working from home, and like at the end of the day, the teachers are like the second last ring on the outside of this huge company, where the final ring is the students.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but like I guess what I'm saying is, like, if you're a teacher, you could just use FaceTime, right? You don't need to use an online platform. The interaction that's taking place, or the communication that's taking place, is just a phone call, basically. It's a video call. And in a way, I think that kind of makes these teaching companies a little more obsolete, where you don't necessarily need a brick and mortar place to sit down with your student. I mean, and don't get me wrong, I think those lessons are better. Like, I think they're higher quality. I think like
Definitely
being one-on-one in the same room with someone is better. I don't know, but I just think, like, if you're a company that's like finding teachers, paying teachers, finding students for the online thing, in the past year, because of what's been going on, like, they need to realize that they're not playing as big of a role. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because they're not offering up a brick and mortar place. I'm sitting here at home teaching lessons, and they're still taking just as much money.
Right. Like, is there anything that they contribute to the actual teaching process other than just gathering the students?
In general, like overall, or just for the online lessons?
For the online lessons, these companies' contracts.
I guess it's different. I can only speak from, or I was going to say, it's only it can be different from company to company. In my own experience, though, they basically just find you the student. They don't give you any kind of material. They handle a little bit of the communication, like they'll send your Zoom ID to the students.
Okay.
But again, it's basically, I open the app, they open the app, and boom, there we are. Like, that's all there is to it. And I just think, I think for the teaching student to be taking just as much money as they would for a normal lesson where you're in person, using the copy machine, banging on the piano, getting things dirty. It's just like, I don't know. I feel like the word ripoff is like so uncreative and like cliche, but it just kind of feels like a ripoff. Like,
It's true.
I don't
Like,
know.
we've
Do you feel
experienced
that
some.
way? Like, am I crazy, or
No,
do you
no,
think I
not
should be
at
getting a
all.
larger cut
Um,
of online lessons?
I think you should be getting a much larger cut of online lessons
Yeah.
because they're not providing you with the space to work like they used to. You have to
Hmm.
come up with all that on your own. So,
I think an initial finder's fee is okay. You know, like, yeah, you find me the student. Sure,
yeah.
take the first lessons on me.
I would like to
But
see the standard for that finder's fee thing be just a one-time payment, though.
yeah,
Like,
right,
6 months
exactly,
down the road, the student doesn't care about the company anymore because they're just working with the teacher.
exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. What difference does it make if it's through the company or not?
Mm-hmm.
It's just, you know. So yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I think, I mean, one of the things that we've talked a lot about in the podcast is just how education is going more and more online,
Certainly is.
and this just kind of seems to be another situation where that's true.
And I think certain elements of that might be here to stay, like the online teaching process. What I hope we don't get into is where it's
Like which ones? Like,
well, I don't know which ones will stick around. Hopefully, just the ones that make things easier, not the ones that like take away value from
Yeah.
the educational process. But I don't know. That's like feels like a very hard and controversial thing to distinguish, like what would
Well,
and wouldn't be.
one thing I mean, thinking back to when I was in school, as far as back as middle school, I remember like you would turn things in online, assignments would be given to you online. So the online has always been a pretty big part of it. In a way that I think because of the pandemic and how much how much teachers have been forced to do things online, like the threshold for quality is higher now. So even though things will go back to person, that online element to teaching is going to be so much better than it was before.
Yeah, that's true.
Instead
We've
of
had so much time to work on it and figure it all out.
exactly right. So yeah, I mean, right now it kind of sucks that we can't do things in person, even though I know some schools are going back in person.
Mm-hmm.
I think the online aspect is still going to be a big aspect to teaching.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
one thing that's one element that we're gonna take away from this.
One thing I would like to see is somehow using this new technology to shrink class sizes.
Hmm.
Um, and that might sound weird at first, but when we think about how much better a private lesson is than a lecture, it just kind of looks obvious there, where the smaller group you have participating, the more each of them gets out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's more personalized, the smaller the circle is.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if technology is going to make that easier, but with the way that it helps the logistics of setting up all these lessons and conveying all this information, I hope there is some way that we can use that efficiency and convert it into smaller groups of people rather than like expanding the system or something.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that teaching there will always be a human element to it? Do you think there will always be a need for a human element to it?
I sure hope so.
Yeah, me too. But I don't know.
I think there probably will be. I mean,
Do you think the human element has lessened over time?
I think it's actually gotten more deep and more intricate.
Oh, okay.
Like, some would say that maybe you know more people, but not as deeply. And I mean, to a certain extent, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
But the selectivity of social media and having like all of your friends like right there in front of you as soon as you open up your computer, like you get to choose which ones you're going to talk to.
Yeah.
Like, it's not based on who you run into in the hallway or like who you normally sit with at the lunch table. I'm not saying one's better or one's worse, but it's certainly very different. like an
Right.
entirely
I
different
think what you're
kind of
saying that,
relationship.
like, the human interaction is just changing.
Yeah.
But I still, I don't know, maybe I'm like too old school or like too old fashioned, but I feel like that one-on-one, like looking a person in the eyes and like what we're doing right now, you know,
Right.
this is better than doing it online. Like, I don't know, there's just something to it that, I don't know, just kind of irreplaceable.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And I think everyone else agrees with it too.
Yeah. But
But
we just got to be careful that like technology is like just used as a tool and
Right.
not like the end to all end, you know, not like the very final product. It's just like a tool.
yeah. Well, I don't know. I feel like for us, technology is, we got to see it from the start of when we were born. Like
Yeah.
the internet had just like started, and we were getting used to that. And you know, there was like AOL and MySpace and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone said like this is going to be huge one day, and now it is, and we're living in it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the way human interaction happens has changed a lot just in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And I think if we're going to define what human interaction is, we also have to consider that now with technology, we've just been given another aspect of reality to communicate with each other with.
Mm-hmm.
It's like another, I mean, it's just an improved version of sending a letter, basically.
Yeah, right.
It just
much
happens
quicker
way faster.
Right.
So maybe some of these friendships that someone would have had before internet might not last as long because they get through the meat of whatever relationship they had
Yeah.
faster because they're, you know, getting to know each other not only by what they're saying but what they're seeing, you know, the other one, how they're intermixed with their friend group
Mm-hmm.
and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I hear you, man. Dude, all I can say, man, I'm just excited to go out in person and like
Oh yes, me too.
go to a crowded bar and just be around people. And I'm not even a people person, man. Like I am like I can be a people person and like I love being around people and talking to people, but like I don't know, I'm also like a quiet person too, and like I don't like to like put myself out. You know, I don't know, but like still I just feel like because of this past year and just like being stuck inside, like
it sucks after a while.
even the most introverted person like wants to go out eventually. I don't know. I mean, maybe that's not true, but I feel like I'm a good example of that.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Sometimes the biggest conversation of the day is me ordering something at McDonald's.
Yeah, right. It's weird, man. Like
until I get home and I go online, though. That's the thing.
Right. So it does serve a purpose, but yeah, I mean, even still, I just feel like I'm excited for
it's not
in-person events.
It's not the same, like
just like meeting random people in person. Like, when's the last time you've done that?
I said Happy St. Patrick's Day to the guy at Sheetz yesterday.
Nice.
And felt pretty good.
You made a friend there.
Well, I don't know his name. If you're listening, hope you had a good St. Patrick's Day. I think a few minutes ago I said something that maybe you disagree with.
What, aliens?
Or no, not the aliens part. But this could be interesting to discuss.
Okay, all right.
So, you asked the question: does music have rules, or should it have rules? And
yes,
I said the rather controversial. I think the rules is where the art comes from.
Oh, I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think, I forget who said it, but there's like this quote, and it's like, the best part of every picture is the frame. And like I'm paraphrasing, you know, I don't know if that's word for word, but I think that's kind of like saying what you're saying, like within the limitations lies the art, or that's kind of what makes it impressive, you know, when someone does something with limitations and they don't necessarily have, every opportunity at their expense, and they still pull it off. That's what makes it impressive.
Especially when those rules are arranged beautifully, like in musical theory, I think, with all the mathematical relationships. And
I think the question of rules, or the reason I was asking that question, is because I think rules can benefit you, but I also think they can inhibit your creativity when all you're looking, when you're kind of like coming up with all your ideas just based on the rules. There's more to it than that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There's more that's going on when you're being creative than just like, oh, like I'm following these rules and reading this book on how to do it. There's also like your own personal spin on it, like your own take on it. And sometimes your own spin is like just kind of venturing out into the void, not knowing what's going to come, not knowing what the final product's going to be.
That's true. It's almost like just exploration and just freedom and learning music.
Yeah.
It's such an important part of the process because what it allows you to do is look outside the rules and see the whole spectrum of music from an entirely different angle. Like what comes to mind for me is the difference between something that's two-dimensional or three-dimensional. If you look at a circle on a piece of paper, you can see every part of that circle. Mm-hmm. But if you're, I don't know, like one of the particles in the piece of paper, all that you can see is what's directly around you and above and below, which would be theoretically nothing. And you're limited to that. So
wait, sorry, explain that again.
Okay.
That went way over my head. So 2D, 3D circle.
Yeah, if you draw a circle on a piece of paper, horribly unprepared. I don't have a piece of paper.
I'm picturing it.
Okay, maybe I can do like a little graphic.
Okay.
And
this relates to bending the rules?
Yes, it does, eventually. So you look at the circle on the piece of paper.
Okay.
You can see every part of that circle in the paper. So if you were to fill it up with dots, you could see any of those dots at any time.
Gotcha.
But if you were a two-dimensional creature like in Flatland that lived inside that circle, to you wouldn't know anything about there being a piece of paper that it's drawn on because that piece of paper is what you live in. And in music with rules, I think it's the same way, where if all you're ever taught are theory and rules and you're never taught freedom and exploration and creativity, then the rules feel more like a prison. But then if you were to zoom out from the paper and go into the third dimension, you can see the paper that it's drawn on, the table that it's sitting on, who drew it, like so many different aspects of the actual circle that would then show whatever two-dimensional life form exists in the circle what it's actually a part of and why everything is where it is.
Mm-hmm. Just a matter of getting a different perspective, really.
Yeah, and I mean, with music, zooming out from music theory and exploring different realms and different sounds is a great way to sort of understand why theory is so beautiful and why everyone likes to use it so much.
No.
But it can also give you creative ways to bend the rules that work in their own systems, but also relate to theory. Like a really interesting one is...
I don't disagree with anything you're saying, but I think more when I'm driving at is like, do we need these rules? Was Coltrane really thinking about the rules, or was he trying to think of new ways to get weird sounds? And I think if you ask different people, you'll get different answers.
Right. I guess we also have to think about like how deep do the rules go? Like the rule that a dominant chord wants to go to major, that's a pretty solid rule. That works almost all the time.
Yeah.
But if we only lived in that universe where dominant has to go to major, then we could never realize like the true beauty of romantic harmony that would come so much later.
Right. I think I see what you're saying.
So, do we need rules? I think it depends on the the range of the rule. So like
Mm-hmm.
how deeply that rule penetrates into the complexity of theory. So like what I'm struggling with now, just like in my own work, is trying to find out where that line is. Like, where does the theory not matter anymore?
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because every little branch of theory that you can go down has so many different little cool tricks and stuff that you can find in it.
Yeah.
It's like there's gold everywhere, but to call it a rule doesn't really seem right. So,
Yeah, I see what you mean. Maybe rule isn't the right word for it then.
but then what would we even call it? It's like,
Well, it's maybe measurement. It's more like a measurement or a pattern.
some kind of framework.
A framework. You're using a template or a pattern that works. That we know this sounds good. But I think a measurement. It's like there's just no creativity in that. Like
That's true.
that's not where the human element comes from. It comes from like. I don't know why this sounds good, but it sounds good. Like it's weird. I can't explain it, but and I don't know. I think back to like when I first started doing music and stuff. Like I didn't know what a 2-5-1 was. I didn't know anything about numbers,
Yeah.
But for some reason, I knew that a D to a G sounds good. Like that's something you see in a lot of songs, and I didn't really need a mathematical explanation for that to make sense. It was more just like, okay, this sounds logical. Like this is something I've heard so many times before, and it's like speaking. I mean, you hear this comparison a lot with music and the language. It's kind of the same way. Like you might not know exactly what a word means, but you start using it anyway. Like when you're a little
That
kid.
happens all the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even some adults do that too.
Yeah. True. Not just kids, but but everyone.
Yeah, I feel like the idea of rules in music, like in my personal experience, just getting really, really deep into theory, some of the best ideas I've ever had is when I'm trying to go for some complex theory idea that I know almost nothing about, and then maybe even do something wrong, and then I have this new relationship that sounds good, even though it wasn't what I meant to do. I don't know. For me, I'm just fascinated with like going in there and trying to find out why that works, and if it works here, where else can it work, and how many other cool sounds can I take from this little accident that just happened.
Right.
So
Yeah, taking those things and then relating it
yeah,
to
maybe
other areas.
Maybe the question, what if it was like, how much should we take from the rules and how much should we leave? I think that's different for every person.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I think it's different for everyone. But I think more of the human element in music kind of comes from the chaos rather than the order. Like anyone can learn their scales and have proper technique and good embouchure, articulate. They're just tools, though, really.
Yeah.
Because rules come and go. I feel like someone that's doing something
Absolutely
wrong in a couple of years, that could be perceived as right.
Yeah, that's a good point.
This is the way we do it now.
Theory of music is constantly changing.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, theory, but also just technique.
And taste.
Taste.
Like, I bet Mozart
sounds.
probably wouldn't enjoy a lot of the songs that we would play for him. And, like, maybe he would. Maybe I'd be surprised.
Maybe he'd be a huge Taylor Swift fan.
I think he would have had to grow up in the same culture that we did in order to, fully appreciate the music.
Yeah, I hear you. But his music and our music still has 1-4-5.
That's true. There's
still
a
there.
lot of similarities.
It's still in there.
But the tricky thing with going back in time is all the ideas that we've thought of build from other ideas that we thought of before, which build on different ideas. And so I
True.
wonder, like, if you go far enough back that tree, if you were to play something from 100 years in the future, would we listen to it and think it sounded amazing, or would we be thinking like they're taking all the purity out of music, or you know, that sort of thing? Because traditionally, that's what people think every time the genre shifts. The people in the older genre always think like their new version, the new iteration, is taking something away from it somehow, making it less pure. So,
but that's where innovation comes from.
that's true.
I mean, making it less pure. You know, it's like you're just kind of changing it into something else. You're adding something else to it. You're not taking anything away.
Right, and that's how we think of it, because, you know, we came up in a jazz environment. We learned about an innovative music.
Yeah.
And we're really fortunate with that, because
I wouldn't say I came up in a jazz environment. I mean,
it's kind of a weird way to say it, isn't it?
well, no, I mean, because I mean, going back to what we were saying before, like, I played guitar before I played saxophone. I mean, I grew up in more of like a rock,
Yeah,
you know,
that is true.
pop.
But we were educated in jazz.
Yeah. I mean, later on, I did get into jazz, but
our point of view is from point of view in music. I think comes a lot from both our education and our real world experience. So, maybe I should say I grew up in more of a jazz environment, because I didn't do too many rock gigs.
A jazz environment. Well, I don't know if I mean, I did some rock gigs, but it just, when I think back to when my parents listened to it, and like before I even knew what jazz was, I was like listening to rock and roll, and that was just like more just what was around, what was on the radio, you know.
Yeah, that's
classic rock.
That's kind of what I listened to too.
Yeah.
But I just feel like I didn't listen to music nearly as much as I did once I started playing.
Yeah.
Because I'm always looking for inspiration. And
yeah, you have a point. I took listening more seriously once I started playing more. But I think music was always around me, even before I played, and it was still a big part of just kind of my psyche, like what was going on. I have like memories connected to music, and
I think everyone does.
Yeah, I mean that sounds like such a obvious statement. I have memories associated with music, but
like
something about the connection that's really strong.
Yeah, that is profound. Even if I think even more so that it's such a common thing.
Yeah.
You don't really, I mean, I guess you kind of could get the same sort of feeling from visual art or something, but I feel like music has a more direct connection to our emotions than visual art.
Yeah, I think it does.
And I have no idea why. Like,
yeah,
you don't see
it's
people
it's more
dancing
accessible
because of art.
Yeah,
people dance to music.
True. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good point.
And objectively speaking, dancing is a pretty weird thing for animals to start doing. So.
Yeah, that's a good topic for our next podcast. When did we start dancing?
Oh man, I would love to find that out.
Oh yeah, man. You got anything else? We want to wrap it up with a final thought, or cut it early today? What do you think?
Well, I was wondering if we could maybe talk about something non-music related at the end of these to kind of wrap it up.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I like that idea.
So
yeah, okay.
I mean, I know I already told you a little bit about this, but I've been looking into some UFO cases lately.
Oh boy! All right.
For fun. Just for fun.
All right. So give me like top 2. Like what are some alien cases that I should know of? Some videos, some people.
Oh, the first one is definitely the Phoenix Lights.
The Phoenix. Okay.
And
I'll check it out.
The Phoenix Lights. These are like at least a half dozen lights that just appeared over the sky in Phoenix that like thousands of people saw. And apparently there was a newspaper that was printed with a picture of the UFO, like on the front page. And then this was the event where the mayor of Phoenix came out wearing an alien costume, like basically making fun of everyone.
Oh, I didn't hear about this.
And
That's pretty crazy.
yeah, I've actually like heard people say that that's like the entire town seeing a football game and then the mayor saying it never happened.
Oh man, really?
Because that many people saw it. So that's
so the mayor's denying it. He's like,
well, I don't want to quote anything because like anything I would have heard on this would be from a while ago.
Okay.
But
Understandable.
I do have a memory of seeing an interview with him saying that he was pressured to do that. Like, I can't remember if it was with Rogan or Lex Friedman. It was one of those big guys.
Gotcha. Okay, so that's the first one. What's another one?
Oh, dear. Well, probably the David Fravor one.
David Fravor. Okay.
He's the Air Force pilot. That
I might have heard. Yeah, I think I heard about this one.
Yeah, he saw like the Tic Tac shaped UFO.
Mm-hmm.
And he admits that, you know, the Air Force and Navy have no idea what it was, and he knows what he saw was something that he couldn't identify, so I feel like he of all people would know pretty well what he's looking at when he's out flying in an airplane. You know,
yeah, exactly. I mean, he's doing it every day.
But I mean, this is stuff that, you know, 1,000 people have said 1,000 times already.
Yeah.
But I've just been getting kind of interested in looking at it. And I've noticed that there have been a lot of UFO sightings in 2020.
Yeah.
Like a lot more, way more than normal. Like there's at least 1 or 2 of them every day from something with video. And a lot of them are, you know, obviously nothing or a hoax or whatever. And I'm certainly no engineer, so I have no authority when looking at these things, but some of them don't make too much sense. That's all I'm going to say.
I like it. Very diplomatic. My whole thing with aliens, man, I'll give it to you cut and dry. How come we've only ever had sightings? If aliens are real, then why won't they just freaking visit us? You know what I mean? Like, why are they so elusive? Why can't we just prove it? Because we can prove a lot of other things. It's like Bigfoot. Like,
I have a theory.
And listen, man, I'm not saying that aliens aren't real. I think there's probably life out there. It's a big freaking universe. All right, I want to say fucking, but I don't know if we can curse on the podcast.
It's all right, yeah.
Okay. Big fucking universe.
It's a big fucking universe.
And I think, chances are there's probably life out there somewhere. But I just think, like, this whole, like, the hunt for alien, like, they'll just come when they're ready. I don't know. Well, like, why don't you think they would just say, hey, aliens here, we're from over there.
My theory on that is that we're like the elephant in the room for them. Like,
how so?
Like, nobody wants to touch Earth because we're like so messed up. You know, we have thousands of nuclear bombs like ready to go.
I guess so.
And you know, we just had this huge pandemic. If they saw anything from this, then they're definitely like either laughing or like getting ready to like destroy us. But
well,
either way, I mean, they might be impressed with our science, but I mean, where are they going to see our science? They're going to see it in the stuff that we fly around, which is all military stuff, which is important. You know,
I mean, they could just come down in their spaceships and land on Earth and look around. I mean, I don't know.
Let me ask you this then. What do you think we should do if we landed a rover on Mars?
Which we just did, right?
And instead of finding a dry, desolate landscape, we found it was completely full of life. Do you think we would keep sending probes there?
Well, okay, this is something I was thinking of earlier. How do you define life? Does life have to look the same way it does on Earth?
What if it was... Well, no, it definitely doesn't, and I could talk about that for hours. Life doesn't have to be carbon-based like we are.
Right.
It could be silicone-based, or... Like, I watched this documentary made by Melody Sheep where he, like, goes into really in-depth detail of the possibility that alien life could have, and It's really pretty incredible because it really stretched my mind. But
Yeah.
like the thing with that is whatever medium the life takes hold in, like for us it's carbon, like we operate on a very specific pace.
Yeah.
Like we live and die in roughly like 75 to 100 years in wealthy countries.
Yeah.
And you know, we're probably of the top of that range, but on average you could say you have life forms from 400 years to a couple days on Earth.
Yeah.
But maybe in the heart of a star you could have plasma convection currents that arrange themselves in certain recurring patterns and self-replicating phenomena that could be thought of as life, that would live and die in nanoseconds. Or on silicone-based worlds, maybe the life grows in crystals over thousands of years.
Yeah.
So what I am worried about in the concept of aliens is that maybe carbon is one of the faster forms of life that to other forms of life we're just a blink in the eye.
Yeah.
Like nothing. So those would be life forms that I don't think we would be able to communicate with, because our entire history as humans might evolve and either die or change before they can even notice that we're there.
Right, but are these the life forms that are flying the UFOs?
Well, I don't know. Probably not. I doubt they would be able to think that fast if they had such long metabolisms. But yeah, this is a pretty weird conversation.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think, I think, like I said, chances are, if we add up all the planets in the universe, there's probably one or two that have something on it that's kind of like what we think of as life, like an animal, or, just something with legs that's running around, or something that's swimming through liquid.
But then you ask the question of intelligence, or I would ask the question of intelligence then, because there's clearly a difference between being able to talk to something and take samples of it,
Yeah.
But just to think of the diverse history of Earth and all the different possibilities that could be in place on other worlds is just fascinating.
Yeah, man. Like I said, I think it's possible. Are they visiting us? I don't know. I mean, we can't visit them, so they would have to be way, way smarter than us to visit us.
It's true.
And maybe they're not. Maybe they are.
Maybe they're not. I mean,
maybe they're elusive, but that's the thing. Like, why are they hiding from us?
What bothers me is when people say the claim, or when they say extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence.
Yeah.
But then something like the Phoenix Lights happens, and suddenly it doesn't matter anymore that an entire city saw these lights moving and doing crazy shit right over their city.
Yeah.
And the government's pretending like it never even happened.
Right. I mean, and I guess that brings up the question, is the government doing weird tests out in the desert that they just don't want people to know about? I don't know. It's just...
I think I draw the line at that. I think the government doesn't know very much more than we do.
Know? Yeah.
I think everyone's just trying to figure out what's going on, and I think the fact that we still don't know what's going on freaks the government out, and they don't want us to get freaked out by it too.
I think
I understand that, even though I don't fully agree with it.
Yeah, I have to check that video out. What's it called?
The Phoenix Lights doesn't have a video.
Lights.
It's just a story because it happened years ago. But the Fravor stuff is actually on the Pentagon's website.
Okay. So. Well, yeah, I'm more familiar with that, but I don't know, man. It's interesting stuff to think about, but I don't know. I'm a little more skeptical than you are, and that's okay. And
I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. I'm not saying that I'm against aliens. I am their friend. I'll be their friend. I'm pro-alien.
We at the podcast are pro-aliens.
We're sponsored by an alien company.
Yeah.
We
weren't supposed to tell them about the alien sponsor yet, Paul.
Well, which
Well,
ones?
We hope you liked the
Yeah.
video footage. Don't forget to leave lots and lots of comments with all of your thoughts so that we can have fun conversations.
All your love.
Yeah. Or your dislikes if
Or
you think
your-
we're just a bunch
Or your
of
critiques.
stupid idiots. That's fine too.
Oh, shit. All right.
I'll admit I'm a stupid idiot. All right.
All right.
Good night, guys.
Good night.